Good afternoon. Welcome to everyone, and thank you for joining us. We are really excited and fortunate to have Harvey Fremlin with us from the NSBRC. So that's the National Self-Build and Renovation Center in Swindon, where I am filming from today. You'll see I'm in a slightly different background than I generally am. But this is just one of the additional rooms that is in the Self-Build Center in Swindon. So as a reminder for today, we've created this Self-Build Hour as an opportunity for people to access information online. We know that you really need to research and do the best you can as self-builders to get as much information, get the best people, the best team around you to help you execute your self-build, but you need to be able to have access to those resources. So that's really generally what this self-build hour is, by making it accessible from the comfort of your own home on a monthly basis with specific topics. But today's topic really falls in line with that totally, in that we're fortunate to be joined by Harvey, who is the managing director of the NSBRC, so he knows firsthand all about the resources that are available to self-builders, and he's here to give impartial information. For those of you who have been to the NSBRC before or have attended their online courses, you know that Harvey is used to being on the other side of some of these sessions. And so we're going to have to keep him from doing his own moderating today, and he can just sit back and relax. As a reminder of logistics, there is a Q&A button within the meeting. We would encourage you to type in questions to that Q&A section whenever you think of one during Harvey's talk, and then we will come back afterwards. If for some reason you don't have access to the Q&A, just put it in the chat. And a reminder that we are recording this. So following the session today, we will post that video online so that those of you who want to go back and revisit the information can do so at your own convenience, or people who haven't yet had the opportunity to join these sessions live will have the opportunity to go back and revisit past self-build hours. But for those of you who are here, you know that you have the opportunity to ask those questions directly to Harvey and the guest speakers that we typically have on the self-build hour. So it's a really good opportunity to get your specific questions answered, which more than likely multiple people on this chat will have those same questions. So without further ado, I will hand the microphone and the camera over to Harvey, and we welcome the advice he's going to give us on resources for self-builders.
Thank you very much, Jenny. Just checking, can you hear me?
I can't hear you, Harvey.
You can't hear me, okay. Bear with me.
Oh.
Can you hear me now? Am I
Yes.
coming through? Brilliant. Okay, great. So thank you so much, Jenny, and Alan, everyone at the team for inviting me. And this is quite strange because you're sat about 10 meters from my office, Jenny, and I'm at home actually today, so I'm not in the centre, but home is only about a 15-minute car ride away from the centre. So welcome everyone, and thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm going to bring up my slides, so if you just bear with me one moment. So hopefully that's coming through clearly for you. So what I can't tell from the people joining us this afternoon is whether any of you have been to the centre or not before. So I'm going to base this on the assumption that you haven't. But if you have, and if you've been several times, if you're very familiar with the centre, hopefully the information that I'm going to provide is still helpful and useful to you in your projects. So let's start with why we do what we do. So Jenny mentioned an important word to us actually, which is impartiality. So ultimately our why, the reason that the centre exists, is that we believe people deserve better homes, and we provide that by running this National Visitor Centre that is open 6 days a week, Tuesday to Sunday, all year round. And we make 3 promises to our visitors that we will inspire them through the exhibits and the exhibitors and experts that we have at the centre. We will inform people with the latest information and advice that's available. And as a centre, it's our role to be impartial. So we don't tend to steer people down particular directions. We listen about their projects and we provide suggestions and potential solutions, often using our pool of exhibitors that we have at the centre, which I'll tell you more about in a moment. I wanted just to play to you our latest TV advert, because this gives you a good idea really of what we offer at the centre. It's just 30 seconds long. I'm hoping the sound comes through, but I think that after this session, Jenny's going to be able to send out the link to this anyway. So hopefully the sound will play, but if it doesn't, you'll get the idea, and then I'll pick up again in 30 seconds time.
If you're starting a self-build project or upgrading your home, the National Self-Build and Renovation Show is the event for you. With over 200 different trade stands, the show offers 3 days of inspiration and advice, with seminars, guided tours and our friendly help desk to energy-saving solutions and more sustainable materials. Discover all you need to create your perfect home at the National Self-Build and Renovation Show, 26th to 28th of January. Book free tickets today at nsbrc.co.uk.
Okay, so hopefully that played okay. So that's an advert that's currently running on ITV West region, and it's running throughout January, obviously promoting the event that we've got at the end of this month. We had a previous advertising campaign running on Sky just to promote the centre in general. And that's a Google Maps view of the building. So it's 67,000 square feet. It was built to be a distribution centre, but we obviously turned it into something quite different. And we're on junction 16 of the M4 with brilliant access, hundreds of parking spaces. So it's a really nice, easy, accessible location for people all around the country to reach. And ultimately, I think in its simplest form, we're a big market hall. So we bring buyer and sellers together. So the sellers are the exhibitors, companies that work within the self-build market and really understand the self-build market very well. And they can be providing products, services to individuals like yourselves who are interested in buying a plot and building your own home, or indeed renovating and extending existing properties. And I think our job, rather than just run that as a very simple marketplace, is to add value. And we do that in a number of ways. We have a help desk. We have educational exhibits that are life-size cross-sections, so you can see different building types, different systems. We run a variety of shows, workshops, educational courses, drop-in clinics, most of them at the centre, but some online. We run a monthly online surgery, and a number of our courses we run online as well. And we offer advice on our website as well. And we have what I believe is the very best selection of manufacturers, suppliers, service providers in the domestic house building market, all under our one rather large roof. And it can be a real hive of activity. If you've never been to one of our events, the show that we're running in a couple of weeks' time, the big January self-build show, we're expecting 1,500, perhaps 2,000 people over the 3 days. And there'll be talks, seminars, guided tours, and it can be a really exciting place. Other times it can be relatively quiet. So we're open Tuesday to Sunday. So on a Wednesday, we might only have 20 people through the doors, but they're as welcome as the guests that come to our shows. And we know that it means they're probably quite serious about researching their project. And we're an employee-owned business. We've been employee-owned for almost 10 years, actually. In fact, we're celebrating 10 years of employee ownership later this year. That was myself and some of the team at the National Sustainability Awards in London last year. We're really proud to be employee-owned, and I think ultimately it means we've got a team of people who are really passionate about what we do and really believe in offering the very best experience for our exhibitors and our visitors. And we get great reviews. So we've got over 600 reviews on Google. Have a read through some of them. It's lovely to hear the thoughts of people who we've helped along the way of their projects. Okay, so Jenny had asked me to address 3 questions really during this session. So what are the top motivations for people undertaking a self-build? What information is most important to understand at the beginning of a journey particularly, and where can you go to find reliable resources of information? So I'm going to spend the next 20 minutes or so hopefully answering those 3 questions. So let's start with number 1. So top motivators, but I also wanted to address a couple of the barriers that people tell us they face and why self-build isn't as easy and as smooth a process as sometimes we would all like it to be for people. So I'm going to share some information from our latest annual survey. So we run a survey each year where we talk to previous visitors of the centre and ask them a variety of questions to get a really good snapshot of who are these people that are doing these self-build projects, why are they doing it, how have they found the experience. And we had 759 people respond to what was a fairly long survey to complete, so we're really pleased with that, and I think it gives some weight to this data that I'm about to share with you. So typical people doing a self-build, who are they? Well, age demographic, 55 to 64. So over a third of people answering the survey are in that bracket. And Jenny will be able to testify as well as the other exhibitors that are based in the centre that is very much our average. And actually, almost 3/4 of our visitors were 55 plus. We would like to see that demographic come down. But you can see only 1/10 of people are under the age of 45. And there are probably a number of reasons as to why it tends to be people in those older groups that are undertaking self-builds. And I think some of the answers that I'll share with you shortly will explain that. We've got a mix of people who are generally either working, largely working full-time, or retired or semi-retired. So 4 in 10 of people are in that retiree category, which obviously matches the age profile. And 7 out of 10 people are building a new home, with the others extending or renovating an existing property. Of those completing a new build, almost half of those are planning to build a brand new home from scratch on an empty plot. And 21% told us they were planning to demolish an old property and replace it with a modern home. And the people that responded to the survey, there was a real spread in terms of where they were with their projects. So 29% were at the very early researching stages. 38% had actually started their project and they'd either secure planning permission or beyond. So they were actually on site constructing their homes, which is great. And just under 7% had completed their build. So they were answering the survey, kind of looking back on their projects that they have just recently finished. In terms of budgets, and I'm going to touch on budgets a bit more shortly, the sweet spot, the typical budget for land and build was between 350 and 500,000. And I think sometimes if people have their only experience of self-build is watching Grand Designs, perhaps, they might assume that your budget for a self-build project needs to be far greater than we are finding the average budget is. But Grand Designs obviously focus on the names in the title, really, the clues in the title, those huge projects. But most people that we meet at the centre are building something that we would recognise as a typical family home, just happens to be very energy efficient and really well designed. In terms of your options for constructing the home, timber is the most popular choice, and it has been for the 3 years that we've run this survey. So you can see there, 24% of people were planning to build with timber frame, and that's what we would describe as traditional stick-built timber frame, where the majority of the timber is erected and put together on site. Very close behind is the prefabricated structural insulated panels, the SIP panels at 23%. And then that's followed by traditional brick and block, traditional masonry, and then ICF, the insulated concrete formwork, which are those blocks that are stuck together with concrete then poured in to create that superstructure. 17% had, they were too early, they were in those research stages and they hadn't come to a decision. So what are the top 3 motivations? Well, it comes as no surprise really to us, because these have stayed the same for a long time, and previous surveys that we'd run in past years have told us the same really. So number one is to achieve a higher quality than a standard new build, a new build that's built by some of the larger home builders in the UK. Number two, to create something that's more sustainable and environmentally friendly. And number three, to create a home that's built to your exact specifications. And they are the three key, reasons why people want to undertake a self-build in the first place. And I think it's quite interesting that there is a clear lack of, or perception of lack of quality of houses that are built in the UK by the larger house builders. And this survey is quite damning, really, that over 90% of people that we surveyed would not want to buy a new build home. They'd rather either not move at all from their existing property, or buy an existing second-hand home, if you like, and perhaps renovate it and extend it. So that is quite telling, and I don't think it will be much of a surprise to anyone viewing this session today. And it is great to see that sustainability is so high on people's agendas. So 91% of people said they budgeted for higher levels of insulation. And at the centre, and I know that Jenny and the team at AC Architects do this very often, we talk about the principle of fabric first. So make sure you invest as much of your budget as you can in the superstructure, the fabric of the building. Make sure it's got as much insulation, it's as airtight as possible, because then you are effectively designing out your energy consumption. And then of the most sustainable items that people have budgeted for below insulation, it is micro renewables, so solar PV to generate your own electricity, obviously. Heat pumps, we just had a heat pump surgery running at the centre on Saturday, and we had 126 people in. It was great for the first Saturday of the year, all wanting to understand whether either an air source or a ground source heat pump was right for their property or their design, and if not, what do they need to do to improve the insulation levels of their property to enable them to use a heat pump. And I did say that I touch on the barriers that people are faced with, and these three again they've been the same for a while, although number one and number two swapped this year. But gaining planning permission, and also I think within that the frustration of a long delay during the planning process. Finding a suitable plot, we all know that it is very difficult, and perhaps becoming more so to find that perfect building plot. And time. And I think if we think back to the age profile of people, I think that probably is one of the explanations. So I've worked at the National Self-Build Centre for a long time, 17 years, I think. And so I often get asked, "Oh, have you done your own self-build project yet?" And the answer is that I haven't yet, and I absolutely will do in the future. But I don't have the time. And I think it's as simple as that, because I'm too busy doing my day job and looking after my family. But at some point, I absolutely will. So I think that does provide some explanation as to why the typical self-builder sits in that older demographic. So what's being done about the obstacles that people are being faced with? Well, the good news is that the government understands that there are those barriers. So there's an MP called Richard Bacon, and Richard Bacon is a bit of a hero in the world of self-build, and he wrote a report a few years back called the Bacon Review, which was his report to Boris Johnson, who was Prime Minister at the time, in terms of what we can do to enable more self-built or custom-built housing in the UK. And the government response to that was positive, and a few things have happened already. So they commissioned, or they created a new unit that sits under Homes England, the Self-Commissioned Homes Unit. And their remit is to try and remove some of those barriers and enable people to be able to take on projects. One of the things that they're looking to launch very soon is the Help to Build scheme. So we might all be familiar with the Help to Buy scheme, which was a scheme that's been running for a number of years to help people who haven't got a deposit get on the housing ladder by reducing the need to have such a hefty deposit. And they're looking to create a product similar to that, but specifically for people that want to buy a plot and build their own home. And watch this space for news on that quite soon. And the legislation that sat behind Richard Bacon's report is the right to build. That was passed a number of years ago now. And essentially, I could do a whole session on this, but essentially it is to encourage local authorities to hold a register of everyone who wants to build their own home. And the reason that's so important is because it will give us a true measure of demand of everyone across the UK who is interested in obtaining a plot of land to be able to build their own property. Now, what we found is that some local authorities have really embraced this, and they're really proactive in their local area, and they are helping people not only register, but enabling them to actually identify and find those relevant plots. Unfortunately, there's probably just as many, if not more, local authorities who are putting obstacles in people's way and are discouraging people from joining the registers, which is quite frustrating. So we saw that actually during our survey results. So 81% of people that we spoke to were aware of the right to build legislation, which is great, and that had crept up slightly from the year previous. Over half the people that we spoke to joined the right to build register. So not only is it useful for them as individuals, because they're able to kind of put their hand up and say, yes, we are interested in a plot, please, but it also helps other people who are in a similar boat, because it's that measure of demand. The obstacles that people are being faced with is that local authorities are just not giving people help or information on plots, and they're not following the spirit of the legislation. They have put in local connection tests, which means that you can't register for an area that you'd like to build in if you can't prove that you've been living there for a number of years. Or they just simply couldn't find information about the register on their own local council's websites. So there's an organisation called NACSPA, the National Custom and Self-Build Association, who are working hard. They've got a task force in place to go out, reach out to those local authorities and try and get to be proactive in terms of doing the right thing by that register. And there might well be some follow-up legislation coming through quite soon that will beef up the stick rather than the carrot approach, perhaps. So number two, what information is most important to understand when embarking on a self-build project? Well, Jenny said it right at the beginning: research, research, research. You are, by being part of this session or watching this recording, you're already doing the right thing, really. So you cannot spend enough time gathering information and talking to people who have either undertaken the process themselves or are experienced experts, suppliers, manufacturers, and really understand the self-build market. And again, another thing that Jenny said, I can only repeat because it's so important, is ensure you've got the right team around you. So you will almost inevitably have a pool of skills that you can bring to the table for your own project. You remember that the third barrier that people were saying was time. So one of the big decisions that people have to make at the very offset is how much time can they realistically commit to your own project. So it may be that actually you're in a position to be really hands-on with the project, to project manage the build and the process yourself, and in which case that'd be great. If you work in trades, you'll be able to bring that experience and those skills to your project, and that might actually serve as a cost-saving initiative to you as well. But for others, they might decide early on that actually once they've worked on the design part of the process, they're very happy to hand it over to someone who they trust to deliver the project for them. So make sure you've got people that you're comfortable working with. When you're talking to them, are they interested in your project and what you want to achieve from it before telling you all the great things that they can do? And are they prepared to offer constructive feedback? And what I mean by that is, are they prepared to challenge you and actually question some of your thoughts and things that you might have on your wish list for your project based on their own experience? And are they strong enough to actually suggest that some of your ideas might not quite work, but here's another way to look at it? So that's really important. And the other thing that's absolutely vital is to understand your budget at the very beginning of your project. So we have heard a few, not often, but a few horror stories where designers have created these fantastic drawings for a client, and then as they presented to them, they thought to ask, what is your budget, by the way? And their budget is never going to stretch to those drawings. But they will still give you the bill for the time that they've put in to create those drawings. So you must understand your budget at the very beginning of your project. So I'm not the expert for creating a budget for a self-build, but we've got people at the centre who are. We've got people who present self-build courses and project management courses that we run. We work very closely with an organisation called Build Store, who you may be aware of, are the market leaders in the provision of self-build finance, who can talk to you about creating a budget and understanding how you create it and where your funding comes from. But it is very important to be realistic in terms of your income and what's available to you, your savings. What you can still achieve to this day, and it's one of the joys of the self-build, is this instant equity. So the day you move into your property, it's worth more than you spent on the plot and the build itself. So it's still a worthwhile cause if you're looking at the kind of financials of it. But there are a number of things that you need to consider. So at the January show, for example, every day, early in the morning, in our main theatre, we have a talk on funding your project and budgeting. And so I'd suggest that if you're unsure, come along and sit in on one of those talks. There are some benefits that I'm sure you're aware of for self-building, because the stamp duty is only payable on the land. You can reclaim VAT on materials used in self-builds and conversions often. But you only get one go at it. So I think that the key is to keep all of your paperwork, all of your receipts safely. And then if you need help to complete the paperwork, because it can be quite time consuming and fairly complicated, there are experts out there who will do that on your behalf. And you're exempt as a self-builder for paying the community infrastructure levy. But again, you need to fill in some paperwork to allow for that to be the case, and you have to do it at a certain stage in the project fairly early on. So again, you need to understand where that sits in your project management timeline and how you're going to do that. And there are a number of factors, of course, that will affect the cost of the build, and Jenny is the person and her team to talk to about that. Myself and some colleagues went to visit Potton Homes yesterday and viewed the show homes that they have at their show centre, and they were telling us that that materials have gone up and up in the last few years with the inflationary pressures that we're all aware of, that really have been the case since the Ukraine war and the kind of the result of COVID times as well, and supply issues. But timber has pretty much gone back to where it was a few years ago now, which is encouraging to hear. But other materials haven't. So steel is still considerably more expensive than it was a couple of years ago. So the costs of materials now are going to be considerably different to what they would have been 2 years ago. So if you'd set a budget some time ago, and you had perhaps an inventory of materials that you knew you were going to need during the project, it's going to be worth revisiting that before you fully commit, just to make sure that the funding and the finances still line up. We often talk about this with visitors at the centre, just remembering why you'll want to do the project in the first place. So come up with a list of the things that you absolutely need, what's important to you and your family. So remember, one of the motivations there is about creating something that works around you and your family needs. So what are the things that are essential, and what are the things that you would like to have if budget allows for? And you will need to compromise on some of those, but make sure that the team around you understands what's absolutely essential and they're on your needs list, and what are the wants, the likes to have that you could, if you know there are constraints there around design or budget, could compromise on if you need to. But that's really for you to make those decisions quite early on, and we'd encourage you to always go back to why you wanted to undertake the project in the first place. You won't be alone. We think there's around 8,000 people self-building in the UK right now. A few years ago, basically pre-COVID, for quite some time, it would average between 10 to 12,000, perhaps even 13,000 people self-building per annum. And they look at VAT reclaim records and planning records to put that data together. But on average, self-build always remains about 10% of the housing market. So 10% of all houses built in the UK each year are self-built. So we are collectively a really big house builder in this country, but it should be more. You might have seen this graph before, but it just shows where we sit in the UK compared to our lots of our European and developed neighbours around the world. So there's a bit of a mindset shift that needs to happen in this country. And with Richard Bacon's report and the work that NSBRC are doing to try and grow the sector, there is the opportunity to do that, but it also involves individuals kind of shouting to their local authorities that this is a build route that they'd really like to undertake. And finally, where can you get reliable resources for self-build? So again, as I said, you're doing the right thing by kind of joining some of these online sessions and gathering as much information as possible. There is tons of information on the NSBRC website, nsbrc.co.uk. Just a couple of pages that I wanted to show you though. So we've got, if you can see in the top right hand corner, as you visit the homepage, you'll see the advice and inspiration section. We've got about 30 case studies online at the moment, and they are like gold dust, really. So if you start to delve into some of these case studies, these are people like you who have done projects themselves, and they're telling you kind of warts and all, the things that went well, the things that they wish they'd done differently, and it's really valuable information and advice. So spend a bit of time reading case studies on our website, in the magazines, because there's no better way of learning than hearing it firsthand from people that have gone through the experience already. We've got over 220 exhibitors in the centre, Alan Caulfield obviously being one of them. Have a look at those exhibitors. They have all got their own particular expertise and advice that they can offer you, and most of them will be at our show in January, staffing their stands, and you'll find they are always really happy to chat to you about their project, give you their thoughts. And quite often I hear an exhibitor saying to a visitor, actually, I don't think we're quite right for you, but let me go and introduce you to someone else on another stand and have a chat with them. And that's really nice, because people understand that it's difficult for you trying to kind of wade through so much information to understand what's correct. So we've got a pool of exhibitors who can help as well. I mentioned NSBRC, the National Custom and Self-Build Association. So they have a portal that is dedicated for individuals undertaking self-build. So the self-build portal, really worthwhile having a look at this website as well. There's tons of advice on here. You'll find information on the Right to Build register as well that I mentioned earlier. And if you haven't signed up, then it's definitely worth doing that. And then there are plenty of magazines and books out there as well. Build It is the official media partner of the centre. We've worked with them since the centre opened in 2007. Highly recommend taking the time to read through some of their copies. They've got excellent articles, case studies, and there's some brilliant books. So this House Builder's Bible, it's the 15th edition. I've got a copy in my office and it's great. It's really, really good. So I would personally recommend having a look at that. It's not expensive and you can buy it on Amazon and all good book retailers. And then something else to look out for is, how long has a business been in the self-build market, and do they really understand it? So if you've never been on a building site before, or this is your first project, you might need a bit more hand-holding than a small-scale developer who's working on projects week in, week out. Are the companies that you're talking to prepared to spend that bit of extra time with you, and can they communicate in a way that doesn't involve lots of acronyms and leaves you confused? So that's something to consider. And are they a member of a trade association or a group? So the reason that's so important is because they will probably have had to have passed some sort of simple tests to become a member of these associations, to prove that they're doing things in the right way, but also occasionally things can go wrong. And in that circumstance, then by being able to talk to an association or a trade body, they will be able to help mediate between you and that supplier, should that be the case. And should, in the most extreme situation, that company disappear, then again, that association might be able to help you. Whereas if they're not a member of one of these organisations, you might be left high and dry. So I would always recommend looking for the bodies that these suppliers and manufacturers are part of. But gut instinct is really important as well. And I say this so often to visitors at the centre, and I think it's very true. If you are chatting to people, are you getting a good feeling when you're talking to them? Can you sense that they're really engaged with your project and they're excited and interested in what you're doing? And only you will know that. So if you've got to make a decision between 3 suppliers and the price point's similar and the product's fairly similar, then go with your instinct. And just very briefly, because I think I've run out of time now, so just wanted to chat about the importance of sustainability to us at the centre. So just a couple of slides on existing housing in the UK. We know we've got a very old housing stock in the country. We don't insulate enough homes. We hear it on the news all the time at the moment. And what that means is we have some of the poorest housing stock in terms of the energy efficiency of homes. The great news is there are loads of solutions and technologies and products out there, all of which we have on display in the centre. But you need to understand what products are right for you. And that's part of a learning journey that we are on at the centre as well. So these are a couple of slides with myself and my colleague Katie, one of our marketing managers in Ireland last year, looking at what they're doing to retrofit properties. So in the bottom right-hand corner there, we were visiting a row of terraces who were having air source heat pumps installed, along with a new ventilation system and triple glazed windows and doors. And this was a large bungalow that was being wrapped in external wall insulation. So it's important that our team keep up to date with the latest kind of technologies and solutions as well, so that we can then talk to our visitors about them and understand what we should be showcasing in the centre. Yeah, the story of these slides really is that there's a huge opportunity / challenge to install heat pumps and other relevant technologies in our existing housing stock. And one of the problems is we don't have the number of trained up installers available to do it. And sustainability, yeah, it runs through, it's the kind of golden thread really that runs through everything that we do at the centre. And finally, I've mentioned it a couple of times, if you haven't been to the centre, then the show that we're running in 2 weeks' time, 2 weeks tomorrow, I can't believe it, it is fantastic. It is full of advice, information, loads of people to talk to, loads of seminars, guided tours of our educational zones. It really is a worthwhile event. I know that AC Architects are doing a talk on design principles on the Saturday, and they'll be running virtual reality sessions on their stand, which is brilliant, every day of the show. So that is it. So I'm going to stop sharing, and then hopefully Jenny's going to come back and we can have a chat.
That's great. Thank you so much for that information, Harvey. It's really nice to see some of the synergies between the episodes that we've hosted in the past and today's episode. Last month Tom was talking about finance, and you really hit on a key point and re-emphasized a key point of the budget being an important starting point and knowing where your starting point is. And that you'll have to make compromises. Those are all really important points. So we've got some time now that we can ask some questions. So Alan has joined us on the screen, and he's going to help host some of those questions.
Hi guys. Hi Jenny. Hi Harvey.
Hi Alan.
So just, I think just following on from that on the budget and the compromise and things, I think it's important to understand that compromises come in loads of different formats. So it can be a negative thing, but it can also be somewhere that will get you to the point that you want, like that bigger picture. And the compromise might be it takes longer, or you save more, or you put more effort in yourself. not just a case of saying, well, we can't do this. And that's something that this self-build journey is ups and downs and challenges and heartache and fun and everything else and in between. So I think it's just important at that outset to say, well, you have to be aware of what you're going in with your eyes wide open and being willing to look at things and step back actually and say, well, I can compromise in a slightly different way. And it might be that I put in more time and effort. And do you see that, Harvey, that most of the people that come through the centre are willing to put the effort in, and because it is a hard thing that they're engaging in?
Yeah, I think, yeah. So yeah, let's be honest, it isn't easy. I think absolutely it's not an easy thing to do. But if I was to sum up self-builders in one word, it would be resilient. They show great resilience, and we've all had to show resilience in the last few years, with all the challenges that we've been faced with in the world. I think we've all perhaps become a bit more resilient, and self-builders are a resilient bunch. And a couple of the slides that I didn't show on those survey results, but I thought were really telling, is that at the time that we ran that survey, which was the late summer last year, we were all faced with huge inflationary pressures. Everyone was highly aware of the cost of living, prices rising with energy, but materials as well. And despite all of those challenges, less than 2% of the people that we asked had said that they were abandoning their projects. Now, what they were saying is that they were going to become more hands-on, which is just what you alluded to, Alan, actually. So I think it was about 52% said they expected to be very hands-on with their project. And that is an obvious way that they could, make some cost savings as well. There are obviously, some areas where it might be a false economy, or it might actually be dangerous to be, to become too hands-on. But even if it's as simple as, keeping the site swept and clean, which helps the trade, and doing, just undertaking that simple, task at the end of every day will be a benefit. But yeah, I think, they are a resilient bunch, and I don't think anyone pretends that, taking on a self-build project is easy, but the rewards at the end of it are huge.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that it's also important to understand that you can't just say, well, I'm going to go from a main contractor to being a self-builder and take out roles. Somebody still has to do the role. And I think that's the key thing that most of our clients get involved in is effectively the project management side of things, and still appoint people via individual trades. So they're taking out that and effectively adding in sweat equity. And I know that at the centre you've got courses that can help potential self-builders become better project managers or learn more about the process. Do you want to explain a little bit more about those? Yeah,
thank you. So yeah, we run a range of, I think we've got half a dozen courses now that we run, and we do what we call internally we call the Daddy, which is the 3-day self-build course, and it really is quite intense. But some people just love to throw themselves in and just understand everything, from right at the beginning. And then we do a range of kind of 1-day and half-day courses. And actually, the most popular one is the one you mentioned, which is on project management. And it doesn't mean that at the end of that day with us, they're going to be, qualified as a professional PM. But what it does mean is that people understand the key things that they need to be thinking about, the kind of general timeline of a self-build project. One of the things, for example, which I know that you can help clients with is CDM regulation, so essentially health and safety on site. And actually, I think it sometimes comes as a surprise to people that they are a self-builder can end up being the appointed person responsible for health and safety, which is obviously hugely important. So at that point, they might think, actually, if I can't commit to understanding and completing the various paperwork and admin trail that needs to be involved in that, or I can't commit to being on site as often as I need to check that things are being done correctly, I think I'm actually better off handing that to a professional that really does understand that.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, and it's something that is not touched on enough by professionals when they're speaking to. I mean, as a chartered architect, we've got a legal responsibility from the point that we speak to somebody to tell them about CDM 2015 and the health and safety implications for that. And just as a quick introduction into that, you need a principal designer to deal with the pre-construction phase, and then a principal contractor to deal with the work they have to be appointed in writing, and it is usually a paid for position. Do not presume that somebody is doing it for you. The HSE don't take that as an answer or an argument that I presume somebody else was doing it. It's a criminal offence if there's an accident on your site, and it does happen. I mean, building sites are dangerous, and so we need to make sure that we deal with these things. And as a client, your job is to pass the liability on to professionals, but do that in the right way. So we'll try and get some links up in terms of the CDM 2015, and it's something that we offer all of our clients. And it's not somewhere to save £1,500 for the role. It's really not where you want to say the cost versus the implications just don't worry and don't tally up in terms of that area. So is there any other questions that have come in, Jenny?
So there was a question that came in specific to the upcoming show and just visiting the centre. And that's if there's someone in particular that you want to speak at, an exhibitor at the NSBRC, should you book an appointment or should you just turn up? And the answer is going to be different on show days versus.
Yeah. So when just on a normal non-show day, most of the exhibits that we have are not staffed by people. So we run, for those of people who've been to Centre for, you might remember the barcode system. So you can go around at your leisure and request that those companies then send you information and get in touch with you. But for a show day, it's different because most of, not all, but most of the stands are staffed by people. And we also have an expert area, normally right in the middle of the centre, that allows you to book one-to-one consultations with a range of experts who might be able to help you with design, with project management, with energy efficiency, quantity surveyors. There's a whole plethora of experts there, so you can book appointments on the day. So just what my tip is always just come early, because even though it is a long day, it will flash by. And often I chat to people when they're leaving the centre at the end of a busy Saturday and say, have you had a great day? And they say, I think so. And it's because they've had to absorb so much information, but it's really beneficial to just come with loads of energy and just chat to as many people as possible. This is not a shameless plug, but if you really do want to pre-book some appointments, there are a few, and there's not many left actually, but there's a few VIP tickets that you can book that are like £25 each or £40 for a couple. And one of the benefits of that is it actually allows you to pre-book some one-to-ones with experts in advance. But otherwise, just arrive early, come to the desk, and if you turn up at 2 o'clock on the Saturday, the slots might have gone, but if you turn up before 11 o'clock on the Saturday, you'll be fine, and we'll get you booked in. And yeah, there's just so many people to talk to. So come with if you've got plans and drawings, that's really good idea to bring several copies of those, because often the exhibitors, if you've made a good connection with them, they'll want a copy of those anyway, and it's helpful for them to give you the best advice. So bring any plans, drawings, sketches that you've got, and a list of questions that you want to get answered. And the team, probably myself included, but there's always a few of us at the info desk there, and we will take you to the right people and make sure you get the most out of your day.
Yeah, I think that becoming from somebody who speaks at shows and does other things, be prepared in advance, come ready, because the exhibitors as well are going to speak to lots of different people. It's a busy couple of days. Get the most out of what you can. So go through the exhibitor list, highlight the ones that you really want to see, go and speak to them, get the Ask the Expert appointments, go and see the talks, plan your day out. And as I think as Harvey said there, bring as many copies as you can, because people will scribble over them, they'll take them away. And I think that's the key thing, and what we're trying to get across in this talk is be prepared for the whole thing and become the best self-builder you can be. There's really good architects, there's bad architects, there's good clients and there's bad clients. So be the best one that you can be. So come to the centre, go to Build It Live, home building and renovating shows this weekend that I'll be speaking at. If you're going, come and say hello. Get on courses. The Mark Brinkley's House Building Bible is just, I mean, you will become almost as well educated as most tradespeople once you've read that. And just get online, get on the courses, and just become that best version that you can, and ask lots and lots of questions.
And don't be shy about asking questions as well, because that's why the exhibitors go to those events. And you won't be sold to. Everyone knows that no one likes being sold to, so that won't happen. What they will do is have a chat with you about your project and steer you in the right direction. And as I said, if you get chatting to a company and they realise actually you're not going to be the right client for them, they will help you, and they will say, actually, go and have a chat with these guys for this reason, for these reasons. You might be better off speaking to them. So don't be shy. It's why those people are there, is to engage with you and to help you.
Yeah. And I think your centre and your shows are even more like that than any of the other ones, because it's such a community. We're all a community of companies that want to see everybody else succeed and the client succeed. And it is that we definitely feel we get that a lot, Jenny, when people from other companies will bring somebody they've been talking to and say, again, with the enthusiasm of these guys can help you and we think we should go and speak to them. So it's and I think it's always a good thing for me and our team to come that aren't based at the centre to come at the centre, because you just get completely reinvigorated, and the stuff that you see there brings it to life. And people who haven't built a house before won't have seen a foundation. They won't have seen site signs before, but you can walk in, turn left, see how a site needs to be set up, and see cutaways, full life-size cutaways of foundation systems. So for those that are maybe scared to ask what they think is a silly question, actually you'll get visual cues and examples when you come to the centre.
Yeah. I tell you a story, Alan. So at the May show last year, there were a couple that I recognised, and they'd been to the centre. In fact, they'd been on one of our courses, and they'd been to the centre a couple of times, and they were sat in the coffee shop, and the lady was in tears. So I sort of cautiously approached them and said, "Is everything okay?" And it was amazing. Just that moment, she'd seen on her phone, on her emails, that they'd had their planning permission granted.
Oh, brilliant!
Tears of joy, really, because all of a sudden it was real and off they were going. And it is so exciting to hear those stories, and you do hear them all the time, and it's brilliant. And so we are, I really love that you are honest and say it isn't easy all the time, and there are compromises to be made, and you do need to be resilient, but actually it can also be really exciting and joyful in lots of ways. And as I said, look at the case studies that are both on your, the AC website and the centre's websites, and you can see people that have done it and how proud they are of what they've achieved and how low their energy bills are, because they've designed these brilliant, energy efficient properties, and they've got something that they can hand down to future generations of their families if they want as well. So there's a real excitement there amongst the hard work of the research and the information gathering that you do need to do at the beginning.
Yeah, and it is tiring. I mean, we're on our over 550 projects now, and we've been through it with clients, and the vast majority of those people have never done it before. They say they wouldn't do it again, but they probably will do it again. Most of them do, when they realise what they've done and made their mistakes on the first one. But it is hard. It is challenging. I think it's probably like the decision of having children and bringing them into the world, and the ups and downs and all the different things. And it's so personal to you. But I think you alluded at the very start, it's personal because the products just aren't out there. The big 4 or 5 aren't providing it. The custom and self-build sector does, and gives you that freedom of choice and that energy efficiency that we all should be striving for. And I think there's so many opportunities to get it right. And it's, as you say, it's about laying the ground rules, get your brief right, understand your budget, and surround yourself by the best people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
There are a few more questions that have come in that have to do with visiting the centre and the upcoming show. So I'll link 2 of them together. Okay. The first is there a show schedule so we know when all the sessions are, so that they can get organized, as Alan has suggested? And also, can we visit the centre out with the organized shows? If so, when is the best time to get the most out of the visit, and when there will be the most professionals at their stands to talk to?
Okay, yeah, good question. So on the timetable, it is imminent. So I think we're sending out to our database early next week. So there's a lot of work and effort that goes into creating an event of this scale. And we've got, I think it's something like 25 talks and seminars each day. So there is quite a lot of coordination in the background, and we're almost there. So it'll be released next week. A slight plug. So every month, we as the NSBRC produce an online surgery with different topics. And in fact, Jenny, you're going to be talking at our next one, aren't you, on the 18th? So next Thursday evening, so a week today, actually, but ours tend to be in the evening, 7 to 9. And as part that's self-build fundamentals, and actually we'll have Tom McSherry from Build Store talking about funding. Jenny will be talking a bit more about design principles, and then we'll actually be going through the timetable of the show and pointing out some of the highlights and things that sessions that shouldn't be missed. In terms of the when best to come to the centre, depends what kind of project you're doing and what kind of experience that you have. So we have got a full calendar of events that range from the large shows to focused workshops. We do eco workshops on heat and energy, on retrofit solutions. We do a couple of workshops in partnership with the Passive House Trust, looking at what is a passive house and the principles behind it. So just take a look at the website, and you'll easily find the kind of what's on area, and you'll see the range of courses and workshops that we run. Yeah, so the three main shows are the ones where you'll get most of the exhibitors there staffing their displays.
I think from our point of view, Jenny, you and your team are in 2 or 3 times a week on our stand. But if there's anybody who wants to have a free initial consultation, architecturally, structural engineering, passive house wise, and also have a try of our VR system, then you can get in touch directly with us through the links that we'll be sending out, and we can make sure that we're in on those days, and we can also help navigate you around the centre as well. So
yeah. And if you want to come on a quieter day in the week or just a weekend where there isn't anything going on, our help desk, we have someone on a help desk from Wednesday to Sunday every week. And that is why they're there, just to have a chat with you. And quite often a quick chat will turn into a little tour around some of our educational areas that we have. We've got these amazing educational tours that break down the story of a new build all through the different stages. So we can show different types of foundations and wall sections and roof sections. And then we have our renovation house as well. So if you're looking to improve an existing property, we can talk you through that and actually show how you'd strip an existing property right back and then remodel it and rebuild it to a modern home. And the guys that work on the help desk are always happy to kind of take you around those and show you specific things that are relevant to your projects. They are here to help you.
Great, thank you very much, Harvey. I'm conscious of time. We've had a few additional questions come in, but I think what we'll do is either address those in the follow-up email that goes out with some of the links that have been posted to the chat, as well as the future recording, or we'll use them as an inspiration for future conversations, because some of them that have come through are really much bigger conversations that can be delved into and topics. And what I'd like to do is just end by sort of, I've jotted down some top takeaways after Harvey's talk or during Harvey's talk. So I'll just end with those. And what I really heard you say, Harvey, is that you need to start by determining what your personal key motivators are and be true to those throughout the project. Make sure you're being patient and persistent, and perhaps also resilient is one of the key words. Don't be afraid to take lessons learned from the experience of others. That's the reason for all these case studies that are published, and the opportunity to talk to other self-builders who have gone through this experience before. You don't have to make the same mistakes that they may have made by sharing those stories. Do your research, particularly on the areas that are going to have the greatest impact on your project motivators and your project cost. And then finally, just balance your research by giving weight to your gut feeling. Put trust in the individuals who you're working with, and make sure that you can put trust in those individuals. So we thank you very much, Harvey, for joining us.
Oh, thank you.
We're really looking forward to future self-build hour sessions, but also to all the information that's coming out at the upcoming NSBRC show and the various events that you hold at the center. And as a reminder, we do have next month's self-build hour scheduled. It's once again the second Thursday. So that's Thursday, the 8th of February, same time, 1 p.m. And it's this time I'm going to be role reversing as well, like Harvey did. I'll be giving the presentation and it'll be focusing on the fundamentals of assembling your design team. So we look forward to seeing you then. And please do always feel free to follow up with us with any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Good luck with your projects.
Bye. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.